It can happen at a park like this, at a school or your neighborhood, or just about anywhere.
A person betraying the trust of your child, leading to an unthinkable crime. It's called an underground crime. Children swept into the world of trafficking, sometimes right under the nose of family or friends, and often by the hands of the people they trust the most.
We do have a lot of youth who they're being trafficked by a romantic partner or by a neighbor or by somebody else in their community, but they're still going to school, sometimes regularly, sometimes irregularly. They're still participating in things. Many of them are still sleeping at home.
An estimated 40 million people fall victim to trafficking and exploitation worldwide. 25% of them are children. While that number is dramatically reduced here, it's happening in Connecticut.
We have worked with youth in every single county, so if you think that it's not happening in your neighborhood, unfortunately, I am here to tell you it is.
New Haven-based Love 146 is a global organization dedicated to ending child trafficking. They say kids can be lured in with food, clothes, money, attention, friendship, and even love.
First, everything is great. Then I just need you to do this one thing. If you loved me, you would do it.
And they found where there are more people, more children are likely to be exploited.
We are in between New York and Mass. We are the main hub, or the corridor.
In New Haven, police are on high alert.
If you try to get rooms in either New York or Mass, you're going to spend a ton more. If you stop here, the motels cost less.
Detective Leonardo Soto is part of the Special Victims Unit at the New Haven Police Department. He says just this year, a woman was arrested for trafficking 6 victims between the ages of 13 to 17. She was their aunt.
They were all young girls, all from New Haven, very young. They all came from broken homes, no dads, just nowhere to go. And the aunt saw that, and she manipulated them.
Websites and even social media are also used to illegally advertise, schedule, and purchase sexual encounters with minors.
I spent about 8 years solid online as a 13-year-old girl, just trying to get out there and protect our children and protect our youth and seeing what was happening.
Making the undercover work Scott Driscoll has done so critical. He's the president of Internet Safety Concepts.
We don't let our children drive a car until they reach the age, they go to driving school, and we sit down next to them with our life in our own hands to make sure that they're safe, yet we'll hand them a device where they can communicate with billions of strangers and not do anything about it.
As the trafficking system has become more elaborate, the avenues for catching these criminals has advanced as well. In fact, there are resources in place to raise awareness and to help victims still suffering.
A huge piece of the healing journey is actually being able to trust yourself again to enter into relationship and to choose the people who are going to be safe in your life and who are going to actually stick by you and treat you like a person and not a product.
And these organizations are there every step of the way.
I don't know who you are or what you've been through or what has happened to you, but you're worth it. It's worth it. You are worth it.
And all week long here on News 8, we'll be taking a deep dive into this issue.
And tomorrow night, we'll hear from some of the victims and share how this unthinkable crime affects some communities more than others. I'm Ken Houston.
And I'm Eva Zamaris, News 8.
Child sex trafficking, it's happening in plain sight.
It should shock everyone. It should make people angry.
Tamara Clark is director of the Connecticut Survivor Care at Love 146 organization. It's an international human rights group that helps kids who are at risk, suspected, or confirmed as victims.
It's very prevalent. It's right in front of us and makes it really challenging to identify.
I already had friends working in a strip club. They introduced me to a trafficker. I couldn't believe how much I made in one night. I thought I could control what happened from there.
A trafficker may target a youth who has already been exposed to sexual abuse or violence, youth who is at risk, a youth who's engaging in risky behavior, a youth who is dealing with low self-esteem.
In America, a child is sexually assaulted every 9 minutes, according to the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network. Some are as young as 10 years old. While the crime happens across the board, children of color, both girls and boys, appear to be at higher risk. That's a 2018 finding by the Department of Children and Families.
I think the number was 210, and of that, 153 were children of color. So it's happening, it's prevalent, and it's happening all over the state.
But why children of color? A UCLA Law Review paper called "The Racialized Roots of Human Trafficking" points to our nation's history. The author, Cheryl Nelson Butler, draws a direct line between slavery and sex trafficking.
The quote basically says that the sexualized exploitation of people of color that developed during slavery and colonization impacts the cultural expectations and belief about the availability to use children of color for commercial sex today.
So where's child sex trafficking happening? You might suspect a dark street corner, a local mall, or even a local swimming pool, or in a public park such as this one. But the most alarming news is that a child can be trafficked right in the comfort of their own home.
I think the biggest risk is through social media.
Michael Cyrex is a New Haven FBI special agent in the Violent Crimes Against Children Division.
Some of these children are recruited through Facebook and Instagram and other social media outlets, much in the same way that a person would interact with them in real life.
That interaction is what you call the grooming period, a time to get to know you. Traffickers may exchange compliments, make a promise, even offer intended victims money.
From there, the trafficker would identify risks and weaknesses that they can capitalize on, that they can then use to either force, intimidate, coerce, or in some cases reward the child for engaging in this behavior. In the trafficker's eyes, the child is a commodity that can be resold multiple times, as opposed to narcotics, which once you sell it, it's gone.
However, there are ways to guard against predators. Software programs that allow parents to track a child's online activities is highly recommended, but the FBI says the first step should be a dialogue with your child about the threat of sex trafficking.
The hazard that I see with social media is even if you kept your child at home, social media comes to you.
I was fortunate enough to be assigned to a federal task force where the sole purpose was to protect children on the internet and investigate crimes against children on the internet, and did that for several years and had a rude awakening of what really happens online. You saw firsthand how quickly it got out of control. I spent a lot of my time, it was undercovering what they call luring and luring of the children. So I spent about 8 years solid online as a 13-year-old girl, just trying to get out there and protect our children and protect our youth and seeing what was happening. And I jumped into that. I went back to middle school where I was a police officer and I was a youth officer. I went back to middle school classes so I knew what the kids were doing because I was being asked. The people that were grooming me weren't just saying, "How you doing today?" They wanted to make sure you were a child. They wanted to get into your world. They wanted to become your friend. So I had to become that child. Each case was different. Sometimes people just wanted to communicate, and there was different laws that would apply to that. Some of them would want to travel and entice and luring is the charges we used. They would do that, and they would travel the country to come meet us. So it all depends. It was a case-by-case basis, depending on what they would do, how far they wanted to go, what their involvement was, and what their intentions were. One of my first investigations, that gentleman wanted to take me away from my family. Maybe not to traffic me, but he wanted to take me away from my family and do things down in his southern state and keep me there as his. Well, I think first and foremost, our parents need to know what apps and programs our children are on. And there's a lot of different ways we can do that. Communication with our kids is key. Talking to our children. A lot of the apps that our children are on have minimum ages. And a lot of families just go, nobody cares about that. Go ahead and sign up for it. Well, the age is there for a reason. So we should obey the rules, we should listen to the rules, but we need to get involved. And unfortunately, a lot of times parents tell me they're intimidated by the technology, which I understand, but that means we've got to get involved. We don't let our children drive a car until they reach the age, they go to driving school, and we sit down next to them with our life in our own hands to make sure that they're safe, yet we'll hand them a device where they can communicate with billions of strangers and not do anything about it. So we need to take a different approach just to make sure we're aware of it. So knowing what apps and programs are out there, setting some guidelines, but also sit down with your child and go through their followers. Who are you communicating with? Understand that someone who's trying to entice our children might not come right out and say, hey, I want to be your sugar daddy. There might be emojis or acronyms and things that they say in a text message that a child will decipher, and you might just look at it as a typo. Parents need to be involved, and if they're not sure what's going on, research and learn about it. We can learn about the technology from our children. They know how it works. While we're learning, we should be instilling our safety concerns about what is a stranger, why are they online, and why should we not be talking to them. Stranger danger is something we teach our kids when they're babies in our arms. And if a person in a white van trying to give our kids free candy drives down one neighborhood, everybody's going to call the cops.